Welcome to SHCTV, everybody. This is Secondhand Coke, and I am with you for episode 10 from Vanity Fair to Vanity Flair. This episode is to contain a little bit more information about Bogart the dog. So we did the special on Guy when Meghan finally decided to tell the world that he had passed away as a sympathy ploy, even though he had in fact passed away months ago, as I came to learn. But during that, there was some issue about her using the dogs to climb the greasy pole, as Lady C would say. And I found another record of her having done that um I want to share with you. So we'll pick up Lady C's book again in episode of 11. But before we move into the content of this presentation, I have a question. Whether the screenshots and the graphics that I put on the screen while I'm talking in videos are helpful to you, or if you just listen. Because I figure I've been looking at some YouTubers who don't show their voice, or excuse me, who don't show their face, but they just set off a graphic and let it kind of run throughout their talking. HGTV does this with astonishing success and proclivity. I could definitely get a lot more videos out if I weren't compiling slides and having to check through copyright on all this and stay ahead of a 24-hour news cycle over the course of a week. But if the slides are really helpful to you, I like the look that they give, and I like how they kind of back up and support and give a context for some of what I'm sharing with you. So just if you feel like it, you feel like you have something to say or an idea about it, just leave it in the comments for me. I'd appreciate it. And I will do my best to take your desires to heart as it comes to that. Now, I have been saying again since October that Meghan is not going to the Invictus Games. I said it last week when we last had a video. I am still saying she's not going. I think she is typically playing her game of will she, won't she, so that everything can be a total circus while people wait for her to show up or whatever's going to happen. Now, I could be wrong. And at this point, the gossip is that she's not going, but it could be wrong. I could be wrong. And she could show up there. But I really wish or hope that somehow Harry and Meghan get a hold of this video, because I have some advice for them for if Meghan does go. And the first thing is that we see how there's already drama in the headlines picking up and gaining, momentum as we get closer to the event. Meghan Markle to attend Invictus Games with Prince Harry as couple adopt new PR strategy. In that article, it said that Meghan decided that they're doing separating their professional lives totally was not working. And so they needed to put them back together. And you and I know it was working a lot better for Harry, but Meghan will not be outshone by Harry. And so there she is, likely trying to weasel in on Invictus Games. And there is a new Invictus Games CEO, and the article in the Express, the latest article, says Meghan Markle's attendance at Invictus Games will spark tricky situation for Harry. Now, the question is, they want to say that they're just victims of this damned if they do, damned if they don't type accusations. But the reality is that if they go, they could get away with it if they travel commercial, stay in a reasonable ass hotel like everybody else in America when you go somewhere, or in Canada, as the case would be. Um, e and for God's sake, if Meghan would wear Invictus memorabilia jackets and shirts and things like that, she would be much better received than prancing around in all kinds of couture that doesn't fit and costs too much, because one thing I'm sure about is that Harry's getting pressure from those as CEO who are tired of losing money because they are sick of seeing their hard-earned money on Meghan Markle's back, celebrating herself and not celebrating the games. And of course, Megan wants to say, I can't help that they all love me and want to pay attention to me and want to talk about my clothes and everything. I can't help that, right? So I just like don't think I should be held back in what I want to wear. I mean, my wardrobe is my voice, and I need to use my voice, and you get the picture. So if she goes and she flies private, she wears only clothing with Invictus memorabilia on it, except for formal attire occasions, where everybody else is in formal attire too. Um, and if she did that and just shut up and kept her hands off of him for just a few hours a day, people would not have as near a problem with her as they do now. So, Megan, if you are insisting on doing this, and I don't think you should, I don't think anybody thinks you should, but if you do, go commercial, stay in a normal hotel, wear the Invictus assigned clothing, stop forcing yourself into every spotlight you find. When the Queen of England says in her dying words in the days before she dies that you are evil, that is a pretty strong statement of character from a woman who is very well known to have been a great judge of character. And that's a lot to get over. So perhaps maybe you should stay at home and ride it out and not go this year and just let Harry do it. But if you do go, you need to do what I said to do. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. Then you're going to get the damned if you do, damned if you don't. But if you don't go, nobody's going to be upset that you weren't there. Trust me. Nobody wants to see you there. So you're not damned if you don't. Anyway, moving on. So I mentioned earlier about talking about Guy the Beagle and the adoption, and how there was one dog that and I think some of you have tried to lead me the right way on this, and I've been just too hard headed and didn't listen. But when Megan made us the pity play and told us all that the relatively young beagle had died last year, but she didn't tell us until several months after he had died. I made a video about the beagle named Guy, making a farewell salute to him, because I don't care who you are, you have to be a very special good boy to put up with her shit. And I'm sure he had to put up with plenty. I kept running into confusion, though, about which dog it was that she was trying to use as Ellen bait. Was it Guy, or was it the other dog, Bogart? And again, I feel like some of you were trying to tell me this, but I have worked it out for myself now. Um, the dog that Megan rescued from the California Rescue Adoption Center was Bogart, who was kind of a retriever carrier mix. And he was the one that Megan left behind when she went to the UK. And I showed you the videos of the clips of them in the engagement interview, and how upset Harry looks when Megan just throws her foot down and says, "No, we're leaving him with friends." And the reason is, I told you guys, the rumor and the reason is that it's because Bogart liked Harry considerably more than he liked Meghan, and Meg couldn't have that. So she left the dog behind. But what it turns out is she was using the dog to social climb on a third level that we probably weren't even able to see until now that she's done some time in the British royal family. So the dog Bogart was adopted or was placed up for adoption along with his brother, who has black fur, and Bogart has brown fur. And somehow that she first posted, all this stuff about my little man and rescue pup, hashtag this, hashtag that. She couldn't do anything. The dog couldn't fart without her making a hashtag about it. And so that's where she was. She had mentioned that Ellen told her to adopt him, but that went nowhere. And so then she approaches the man who adopted the dog's brother. And that man just so happened to be Sally Bedell Smith, who is a pretty prolific biographer of figures of the royal family, including Princess Diana. Now, about a month later, Meghan slid into this guy, we're gonna call him Mr. Smith's DMs, and she proposed that they reunite the brother dogs, and that the brothers and the would play with each other, and Meghan and Trevor, because she was still with Trev at the time, would go together and they could, talk with um Sally Bedell Smith, David Smith, and they could watch how they played. Now, if you're interested, the dogs, they played up a storm. They definitely, you can see huge smiles on their face. They definitely seem to remember each other. And David had actually brought a piece of the blanket that they were both laid in their shared crate at the rescue center. And so maybe, what's his name? Bogart. Maybe Bogart smelled that and got interested in it, and it reminded him or what, but these guys look happy to be with each other, and they apparently ran around and jumped and snapped and, play nipped and just brothered around there for a while. But in Sally Bedell Smith's Substack, which I will link to my program notes here, you can get the extended version of this story. And I encourage you to do that. She's got some interesting stuff on the royals in general, but she does go on to tell that when they heard in the engagement interview that Meghan was leaving Bogart behind in Canada because he was, quote, too old, they were shocked and were unhappy. And because they knew he wasn't too old. He was the same age as the black dog that David Smith adopted, whose name is Otto. So they knew that Bogart and Otto were the same age, that it was not too old for him to fly and to get set up somewhere, not any more than it would have been for Guy. But it is, as we've been told, that Bogart liked Harry better. But when they found out that she was leaving that dog behind, David Smith messaged Meghan back and said, remember, our dogs had such a great time, and I see you're leaving Bogart, and his brother would sure love to have him come live with us so that they can live out their, retirement years together. And they got nothing back from Meghan. So once again, Meghan just shuts the door behind something and doesn't offer any insight or any communication towards what it is she's leaving behind. And in this case, it's a dog. She social climbed using a dog. What are the odds? I mean, I just really want to know what the odds of her just happening to get that name, happening to adopt a name whose brother dog is adopted by someone who's the mother of a royal biographer. I it it's just crazy. I don't get it. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that in the comments if you have anything to add to or suggest to that. Um Let me know if you do happen to subscribe to Sally Bedell's Smith's Substack, and if you get any good articles out of there. I think I just did the one stack, but I'm not really sure how Substack works. It's kind of a new platform for me. So now we've got the Vanity Fair issue that came out and absolutely scorched Meghan and Harry about where are they now 5 years after their huge flounce where they had to tell everybody in the South American media and the British press that they're leaving the family, and it was all a big surprise, knocked everybody a kilter, and causes chaos like everything with Meghan seems to do. So on January 17th, Vanity Fair, who made Harry and Meghan's relationship Facebook official, and then now 5 years later, they are writing a scathing article about Harry and Meghan that has made so many feel very merry and bright, even a month out from the Christmas season. And we'll talk about that article shortly. But first, I want to talk about this was the first article to be written for Vanity Fair about Meghan. It was the first time they'd ever written about her, but it's also really the first time a mainstream magazine had written about her at all, much less given her a cover. And of course, they're interested in the rumors about her relationship with Harry. And so she's really excited to do this interview, but the Queen isn't back from Balmoral yet. So Meghan, of course, pouts and flounces around, and what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. Harry, okay, darling, if you'd like to go say silly things in the Vanity Fair issue, I'm not one to stop you. I'll have to tell Granny, of course, but if you just talk about your 100th episode of Suits, and you just talk about your humanitarian work for women and girls, I think that should be enough to cover a cover page article, don't you, darling? I think so too. But whatever you do, don't talk about how we're together. That's off limits. Granny has said no. So please, just don't do that. So there are those parameters put down. So the writer of this article would find himself to be Markled soon after its release, but the writer called Sam Kashner, he was approached to write this cover piece on Meghan Markle, and when he was asked to write about Meghan Markle from Suits, his reaction was, I believe, the normal reaction for people in the Western world, which was this: who? Because I can remember walking down the grocery store aisle and seeing the article coming at me as I walked closer towards it, and I was like, "Oh, this is so great. Prince Harry has finally found somebody." Um, and it's interesting. She's American. She's got Black heritage, and that could make the British family a little less white than it is, and, that could reach a lot of people, and it's kind of a near I had nothing but positive thoughts, is my point. But then that, as it has for all of us, pretty much changed. So, Sam Kushner is asked to write, and, of course, he doesn't know who Meghan Markle is, so he is briefed about that. Um, and he is ultimately told, um, what to write about it. So, the first part of this episode with him writing this article is, sunshines and flowers and deer frolicking in grass and whatnot. But we'll see that that doesn't last. What I've done is I've gathered a paragraph here and there from the text that I'm going to read to you. Um, Actually, this is from Tom Bower's Revenge, and it details the writing of that article and what Sam Kashner went through as he wrote it. So, Kashner is a very prolific and very well-known writer for Vanity Fair. He's done cover pieces on people like Jennifer Lawrence, Nicole Kidman, Rosamund Pike from Gone Girl. He had also lived in Toronto, yet he said that he had no idea who she was even then. Nonetheless, he goes to her house to do this interview. To me, that already seems odd. I mean, I know that I know it happens, but I don't understand why it would happen for somebody like Meghan Markle. And Scobie confirmed in his trashy little trifle that I swear I'm going to read and review for you just for laughs. But Scobie, who's funding faux pas or finding freedom, whatever it's called, I will, unless anyway, later said that Meghan was eager to talk to Vanity Fair about Harry's and Meghan's love, and that Harry was the one that was a bit recalcitrant, and for good reasons, it turns out. But we'll go through what Kashner told Tom Barrister and his barristers. Tom Bower's barristers. Tom Bower and his barristers wrote a tome. Anyway, I'll stop. I just want to kind of roll with my character accents this evening. So, in Bower's book, he says, contrary to Omid Scobie's assertion that Meghan wanted to tell the world, I'm in love, and did the interview with I keep calling him Mary, with Harry's blessing, Harry had ordered Meghan to maintain a tight-lipped silence about typical subjects, which included Donald Trump, race, their relationship, and especially him. He didn't want to be mentioned in this interview with Meghan. Now, when Kashner gets to Meghan's little house that she's been renting in Toronto, she never bought any property, despite having gotten a $7 million total earnings from suits. Of course, she's got to pay for publicity and all kinds of stuff. That money goes fast, but she could have bought herself a decent little house, certainly, with that money. Anyway, so she doesn't have a house, so Kashner goes to the one she's renting, and he notices all automatically that on the kitchen walls, it is just nothing but covers or photos of herself. And he said the books and the picture guides that were on the coffee table were all about A through Z history books of London and picture seeing guides to London. And she really had like an English sellout, coffee table, as well as her picture on every wall in her kitchen. Interesting there. Meghan at some point sees him kind of looking around, or is in between what she's cooking him to eat, which I would not eat anything that she made. I just wouldn't. But anyway, Meghan says, "You're not the typical journalist. I like you, especially your stuttering." And just imagine me Put my hand over my mouth, a stupid grin she does. Anyway, in the brief silence which followed, Meghan had failed to grasp that Kashner felt he was being played. It was a cat and mouse game, he reasoned, and she was calculating how to take advantage of the cards played. She knows what mark she wants to hit, he thought. She won't hit her goal by being genuine, he concluded. So after this lunch they have, she kicks off her shoes and she tucks her legs under her seat. And she is physically just, visibly chilled out and relaxed in her home. And Kashner decides this is the moment to probe and pry. And he says, "Tell me about Harry," said Kashner, not expecting an answer. Because usually when you hit on forbidden questions as an interviewer, you get shut down and they just don't answer that. And sometimes they'll get mad at you and tell you. So he flat out answers. And she says, "We're a couple. We're in love," Meghan unexpectedly replied in a recording device. So she's doing it not only on the record, but blatantly into his recording device. This is on the record. This is not something where she says, "Look, just between you and me, we're in love. We're a couple." She goes on and says, "I'm sure there will be a time when we have to come forward and present ourselves and have stories to tell. But I hope what people will understand is that this is our time. This is for us. It's part of what makes what makes it so special, that it's just ours. But we're happy. Personally, I love a great love story." Who the hell talks like that? I love a great love story about themselves. Like, I can't imagine telling somebody that how I met either of my spouses was this great love story for all time. That's something else that should be between you, Megan, and it's what gonna make it so special, is that the love story is between you both, and we don't care. So, there's that. She says, "I'm still the person I was and am. I've never defined myself by my relationship." She wanted him to know that she was an independent woman who would not be defined by her relationship with Harry. Now, check this out. Unexpectedly, Marcus Anderson arrives to this interview at her house. Their conversation was interrupted. Meghan says, "I wanted you to meet some of my friends," explained Meghan about the Soho House manager and social fixer standing in the doorway holding a bottle of wine. Baffled, Kashner became more puzzled than ever as the two engaged in an incomprehensive conversation. "I felt played and orchestrated," Kashner recalled. After a time, Meghan returned to their conversation and her agenda and her work for women. To her misfortune, Kashner was unconvinced. Actors doing good work is slippery, he thought. Sensing something jarred about the TIG, a commercial operation operating alongside the charity, the proof, he thought, will be if she goes to Rwanda and India after she's married. "Marcus will take you to the airport," offered Meghan. "No, I'll take a cab," replied Kashner, anxious to escape. Over the next few days, he called those who called Meghan and who had recommended her as friends. And Serena Williams denied that she was Meghan's friend, but just an acquaintance. She gave him an enigmatic note. "You've got to be who you are, Meghan. You can't hide." So the article's done and it's all princesses and unicorns and rainbows. And then it comes out and it's called "I'm Just Wild About Harry," which is everything Harry said it should not be about. Like, it shouldn't be about, it's mad about me. You're not even supposed to talk about me or have your name in my mouth during this interview. So that causes an argument. And it causes a whole bunch of problems for the court and for the queen and for everybody who wasn't prepared for this to be announced like this way. And Meghan, instead of realizing that she is the cause of all this, destabilized by the furor, according to Tom Bowers Barris's, Meghan texted Kashner, gutted and deflated. Soon afterwards, she called him. I'm very disappointed in you because I thought this could have been an actual friendship. I don't think that can happen. Kashner, she implied, had queered the deal with Harry. Kashner was puzzled. How could she hate a blatant puff piece? Then her feelings were explained. Of course, she hated the title Man Wild About Harry because she was promoting her philanthropy. She was equally furious that her childhood battle with Procter and Gamble was outright omitted. Thank God that was omitted. That was doing Meghan such a huge favor to leave that damn dish soap story out of anything that comes out of her in an interview. It should have been left up to that. So basically the whole story went down like as a lead balloon, or as my grandmother would say, that was like a fart in church. Um but So the palace was very upset because everyone had been explicitly told the relationship wasn't to be talked about until the queen, that is, got back from Balmoral. And Harry was mad at Markle because he told her what she could discuss and what she wasn't free to discuss in their relationship. And she broke every guideline or boundary that he set for her. And she did it right into the microphone, right onto the record. And so basically all of the scandal surrounding all of this is all her fault. So what does a narcissist do when something goes wrong? Well, first, that didn't happen. I didn't tell him that. But she did tell him that because Harry's got to be like, but it's true and he knows it. So you told him. If I did, it really wasn't that bad, but it is bad. We told Granny we were going to wait until she got home from Balmoral. And now we can't tell Granny that we're going to wait anymore because you've gone and scuppered it. And is that what scuppered means? I don't know. But anyway, and you've gone and thrown it all away, and now Granny is upset. And so Meghan says, well, if it is my mistake, or it is a big deal, it's not my fault, it's this writer's fault. Hence the destabilized and furoric text Meghan sent Kashner saying gutted and deflated, which some of how she picked up so many British words in the short time in the UK is funny to me, but no American says gutted. But I can see Harry saying it very much. So yeah, then she wants to blame it on Kashner. And I'm not sure how much further down the chain this goes, but if it goes past Kashner, which how could it not? He was just writing what he was told. Then she didn't mean it, and if she did mean it, you deserved it. So you know how it goes. I don't need to tell most of you about how life with a narcissist works. So we finished the top version, Wild About Harry, the Vanity Fair article. And the one that we're doing right now is the latest one that came out in January of 2025, just a few days ago. So January 17th to be exact. So that was how the last Vanity Fair article went, from being Meghan's dream to be on the cover of Vanity Fair and God knows she was never going to be on the cover of Vanity Fair had she not met and married Harry Markle. I mean, that was just not going to happen. Her dreams have been turned to a shit show as far as Vanity Fair is concerned. But what has she touched that hasn't turned into a giant circus of vainglorious glare from the universe? Anyway, let's see how it goes this time. So I thought I heard somewhere that this article was kind of commissioned like the Hollywood Porter one is rumored to have been. So the rumor is the Hollywood Porter article came about because Meghan told them to do a story on her as a boss, what a great boss she is. And so they went interviewing and got, reports from many different sources over many different platforms, all saying the same things, which is she's not a good boss. She's a terrible boss. And Meghan doesn't respond to it because what is she going to do? The people are telling the truth. I mean, and then so there's that. What we do know Meghan did was clap back, as she is prone to do in situations like this. But this time, when she claps back, she uses In Touch, which compared to the very reliable Hollywood Reporter, which is an incredibly reliable source, In Touch is a seedy tabloid, basically, and half of what's in it isn't true. Well, that's the publication that Meghan used to clap back in. So she sent a couple of her butt lickers over to In Touch magazine, which has the same amount of integrity as National Enquirer. And as of the time that this latest Vanity Fair article was written, I'm not sure what tabloid she's clapped back to about this, but it will be hard to find one, especially since she's pretty clear that she is an American and we don't have tabloids here. So she said it, not me. Okay. I love that the title of this one is called American Hustle because I will say a lot about Meghan, but the one thing you have to credit this girl with is how to hustle. I mean, it's all a con, and she looks terrible doing it. What the hell is she wearing in this photo? Like, oh, okay, whatever. But, as I said, take the good with the bad, but the good is she can hustle. And I also liked how the authors really played with her on this, or the author, Anna Peel. So the subtitle is Inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Big Business Ambitions 5 years after their royal exit. Ensconced in their cozy Montecito mansion, the Sussexes are living the American dream. By all accounts, the love is real, but their foray into moguldom has not always been a smooth ride. Ensconced in this living place right here with how many square feet? Like more than 18,000 square feet. 18,000 square feet. So I've pulled some pictures of what is called on St. Meghan Markle subreddit as is referred to as the Olive Garden Mansion. And I see it. I mean, that is 100% just an oversized Olive Garden, like one of the 2-story ones that, you can sometimes eat upstairs in, which is so fancy. But I'm kidding. We have better stuff to eat down here, believe me. But so this is the Olive Garden Mansion in all its glory. Over here, like to the far left on the picture of the exterior of the house, you can see like the pool, this huge pool. You can see like a full playground set, like you would find at most national parks. Like it's that big, it belongs in a national park. that looks kinda like a guest house and then some kinda wing here. And again, the swimming pool with it looks like 8 places to sit. I'll go into that later. So I've pulled a few, snatches of, uh of article, and so that I don't wanna run up against copyright because, if you wanna read the whole thing, then you can see it online. Um, and I think we should support articles like this because then that just means people are gonna write more of them, and this is the type of stuff we've been wanting to see all along. So the author writes, House proved it. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex could have it all. Their Montecito home offered all the fresh promises of a 21st century California mansion and the cloistering of a gated neighborhood from which they could emerge on their own terms. Yeah, they can emerge and not get like poor people all on them, essentially. That's what the gate in the gated neighborhood does. Um, in the house's 13 fireplaces, described as mostly centuries old examples brought over from France, there was even some European history stripped of any potentially uncomfortable context. Who imports a fireplace? What? Why? Why? Okay, at 14.65 million for more than 18,000 square feet, half the current median price per square foot in Montecito, Rockbridge was a steal. The oligarch owner's romantic relationship had deteriorated to the point where he was compelled to offload far below market value, according to a source with knowledge, and the property seemed just right for the Duke and Duchess. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It was the perfect launch pad for Archwell, their nonprofit and entertainment studio, an approximation of a part noblesse oblige, part aspiring, independently wealthy mogul model, one that Charles, Elizabeth, and William rejected by fiat during January 1920's Sandringham Summit. In other words, they intended to have the ease of life of the noblesse oblige, and to give back all of the riches that they make by shining a light just by putting their presence on an issue and then reaping up 95% of what people vote on that or donate towards that. So here's some back views of the house before we move on. Look at that grill right there. Megan can barbecue some burgers if she wants to. I have to tell you guys that I have kind of an obsession with really bad Photoshop. Like I just like it to be obviously bad. And so you will see bad Photoshop throughout my presentations as they come and go. Um, and if anybody has not seen the commercial Megan did where she sexily cooks and eats a burger, you're missing out. And I gotta tell you, you need to see it. It's worth it. Over here we can get a more clearer view of the pool, and it looks like there's like 8 seats around that thing. So that means there's room for Meghan and Harry and Archie and Lilibet, obviously. Sophie Trudeau, Jessica Maroney, they got in a fight. I bet there's just enough room for like Sophie Trudeau to bring her karaoke machine and sing some jazz for everybody while they swim. I'm sure that's how it goes down with old Sophie, who says she doesn't know Megan. So there we go with that. Here's another view of the interior. It was helpful here that Megan showed us other uses for her book, The Bench, because God knows when we got it, or those of us who were unfortunate enough to get one, quickly found out that this book was not meant for reading. So look, she's got her laptop propped up on a stack. She's got a stack at the corner of the desk. Oh, that poor little dog behind her. That dog never moves. Like, what is it with her babies and her dogs that they never move? Oh, look, Megan's happy on a couch. Imagine that. I thought she just cried all over them. And here's their living room. Here's probably one of their imported fireplaces. And that is a full grand piano right there. If you don't know, it's not a baby grand, which even Billy Joel has. It's a full-size grand piano. Nobody in that house plays piano. Megan doesn't play piano. Harry doesn't play anything except for Xbox. I I think I heard Tyler Perry gave that to them actually, or who's that one that married Christy Teigen, Christy, whatever her name is. Uh, her husband may have given it to him. I think it was her husband or Tyler Perry who gave that piano to them. Anyway, here's a final set of interiors and then we'll move on. This looks like a random bedroom with another imported fireplace. This girl's bedroom is just too much for words. I mean, it's cute. It's cute for a little girl. I cannot imagine how a little girl must love something like that. Like I had a canopy over my bed. This was in the 80s, and I thought I was hot shit for having that. I really did. But yeah, I think that's cute. And a little sofa in there and whatever. It's probably it's over the top for a kid who's going to grow out of that in T minus 8 years. Um because they're going to turn 12 eventually and not want to sleep in a princess bed anymore. Oh my god, can't sleep in a princess bed. It wouldn't surprise me if Megan doesn't sleep in that bed herself. Like I bet she does. All right, of they've got a wine cellar. Rachel at Hotmail can't send heady emails off to people, shattering their will to live all through the night if she doesn't have at least a couple of bottles of these to help her with her project. Is this a carpet? Is carpet a thing in a wine cellar? Like, somebody who knows something about wine, I genuinely want to know. Like, it looks like it's a carpeted ceiling or a leather ceiling and carpet on the ground. Is that some kind of wine related thing that I don't know about? Probably. Let me know. Okay, so back to what they've been doing in this article. Now, Harry and Meghan declined to be interviewed for this article, but Vanity Fair found many other who were willing to say things about Harry and Meghan. The article goes on to say that although they've not gotten something new off the ground, Harry and Meghan have not, they've had lots of opportunity, more opportunity than most who voluntarily exile themselves somewhere else. So they've immigrated to the country, and you know they haven't worked as hard as the most illegals have, who are out in the scorching sun picking crops and things every day now. And um but no, Meghan and Harry came in and they just immediately get handed these $1 million deals. And one of them we know, well, we'll talk about the ones that they pick up new a little later. But Harry still works closely with the charities he founded. So the Invictus Games and Santa Bale, an organization focusing on mental fitness and the impact of poverty and HIV/AIDS in Southern African countries. He has real gravitas when he speaks about his work in Africa, a source says. So Harry does have legitimate interest in the people served by these charities. Harry doesn't want them to go down the tubes. Harry, I have been advised, has also been advised that Meghan's presence is tearing his charity into the ground, which is why he didn't want her to go, why she wasn't going, and why I still don't think she'll go, because it's going to run the charity into the ground, and they're not up for it. And Harry isn't either, but the question is, will he have the backbone to say, no, you can't come to my Invictus Games event. I don't know why you have to come to my events. I don't go to your event, gate crashing here, there, and everywhere else. And then you make me go to California fires, and I didn't set any fires. I don't know why I had to be. Anyway, a whole thing happened. I'm sure it was a whole argument, and Harry sounded exactly like that. So Harry loves his work with Invictus Games. He loves his work with Bali. He loves coming and, shining a light, to use Meghan's term. But in Harry's case, it is effective. When a prince of the realm endorses a charity and says this is something you can trust, and he goes and works for it and is the face for it, while um everything else is going on in his life. So when he has confidence in his speech and things like that, it's when he's talking about Africa. Um, Now, Bale was founded, I thought, to give AIDS relief. But it seems like now Harry has rephrased it to be an organization focusing on mental fitness. And to me, mental fitness, that phrase, that sounds like some better app nonsense. Like, I'm worried about Better Not or Better App, whatever, and their effect on people, because this sounds like hands down cult type stuff. My mental fitness, eh? Now, oddly enough, regardless of how much Harry loves Africa and he loves the Invictus Games and he loves Centabale and wants to improve mental fitness there, he sure hasn't given a damn about the the what was it? It was the African Parks Foundation, where they came to him alleging, he's president, they came to him alleging abuses by the workers. And, these women and men and maybe even girls and boys have been traumatized by sexual abuse, or SA, I guess I'm supposed to say, in what should be a safe place, and Harry hasn't even acknowledged it, much less done anything about it. But it's all up to Harry, because Harry proclaimed in Spare, and I heard it when I went through the very in-depth summary that Sheer Denise did, because I have not been able to bring myself to read Spare entirely, but she did a very thorough examination of it that I recommend. Harry said, Africa's my thing. No, Willie, Africa's mine. It's mine. You can't have it. Pa, you can't have it either. Like, I'm surprised that there's not a tree house sitting somewhere in Lesotho that Harry has built that has a sign on it that says, no direct heirs to the throne allowed. Because that's the energy given off by Harry being like, Africa is my thing, and I love Africa. You can't love Africa because I love Africa. Meanwhile, this is William. And anybody else who's been told they're out of Harry's circle. It's just like, yee, we don't have to babysit you anymore. Moving on. Free Willy. But yeah, meanwhile, people are harmed by those involved with the African Park scandal are waiting for acknowledgement, and they'd probably like an apology and some financial remedy, or at least a shot at mental fitness, as those injured do deal with their trauma. But I guess I don't know what is going on with that and Harry. Now, in the meantime, Meghan has been doing such groundbreaking activities as the 40 by 40 initiative. This is part of her hugely important work for women and girls since coming to LA after leaving LA. After all, how could we forget the 40/40 initiative? What would women and girls, what would we have for us had Meghan not deigned to do a skit on social media with Melissa McCarthy where they pretend to have tea and she wraps herself wearing a wife beater and an Hermes throw, because you're always seeing Marlon Brando wear that stuff. You know, he like, Stella! Stella! Hey, Stella, get my Hermes throw. Get my Hermes throw, please. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. I'm sorry, my Marla impression and my Harry impression are just linking together right now. I'm gonna have to work on that. Yeah, so Melissa McCarthy, and then she wears that hat there that has a cabbage on it, which is a clear dig at Queen Elizabeth II, because I believe Prince Philip called her cabbage. And that was a term of endearment between them, and I think that's why that's there. And I don't know if Melissa McCarthy knew, but Meghan certainly would have if she paid attention to anybody but herself, which I'm not convinced she does. Anyway, so the whole principle of this, which is plagiarized from Nelson Mandela's 60 for 60 or 50 for 50 or whatever it was. But the idea is that these famous women sign up, and it's basically daring them to call some normal people and coach these poor normal women as they go back into the workforce after COVID. I, for one, hate that this challenge has never come about, because I would have signed up for it. I would have signed up to receive a coach in a heartbeat, just for the opportunity to troll these people and videotape what they're saying to me. Like, Meghan, what are you telling somebody in 40 minutes about getting a job? You're not and what do you know about getting a job? You don't know how to get jobs. You know how to get fired from them. You know how to treat people like shit at them, but you don't know how to get a job. Jeez, what do you have to say to a 40-year-old woman who's trying to get back into the workplace, or any woman who's trying to get back into the workplace after COVID? Especially since most jobs lost during COVID were lower income jobs. So, restaurant workers, those types of things. Why don't you each give a woman $40,000 to live on for a year while they get a job to help supplement their income? Now, every one of you who signed up for that could set aside $40,000, give it to Cheryl Thompson down the road, and say, "Here, use this. I know you're trying to get back on your feet for COVID. Use this, catch up some bills, when you can pay it forward." That, I think, could have been worthwhile, and I wish that was the challenge that would have come through, because I just signed up for that one too, because anybody wants $40,000, including Meghan. But anyway. Now, the 40 by 40 challenge, and it wasn't mentioned in the article, but it reminded me of the whole SmartWorx thing. So after Meghan's maternity leave, like the tail end weekend of it, she took off, no baby, to the US Open so that she could flash her crotch at Serena Williams' husband and aggravate her mom by talking her to death and jinx Serena out of winning the US Open. I'm convinced they think she's a jinx. And she is a jinx. Just look. Everything she touches turns to crap, like, almost immediately. But anyway, so after the US Open that weekend, she gets back in town and she goes to her very first work commitment since she's been on maternity leave for 9 months. And she is wearing, like, they had designed a few pieces of a capsule wardrobe for poor women to have to place, to do wear going that when they go to job interviews. So they developed like this wardrobe of white blouse or a white like button down shirt and black pants, groundbreaking. But the white shirt was like $180 some dollars. And so Megan comes back and she's wearing the white shirt and the black pants and she says a few words about it. And then now this is her first engagement since she came back from her maternity leave. And then she goes and says, I gotta go. It's feed time. Feed time for Prince Archie. It's feed time. And I'm like, you didn't care about feed time when that baby was hungry the entire weekend. You left him in the UK and you went to go jinx a tennis player. I mean, he wasn't feed timing then, I don't guess. Uh, I just can't. I can't with those. All right, back to the article. So last week I had made this graphic and I knew there was a reason for it. And I remembered as I was putting this presentation back together. But I have inadvertently put Harry's head on the wrong type of body. I mean, some of you may argue it's the perfect fit. And I love how the red hair kind of gives him a mullet look. But yeah, just more of my bad photoshopping, which I love to do. Anyway, the article says optimism abounded as the couple embarked on their Spotify deal in 2020. Both for them and for those who were coming in to help do the work. I thought that I had the role of a lifetime, says a person who worked in media projects, who was a fan going in and eager to make the type of life-changing content Harry and Meghan were seen to want to create. I thought I was going to be besties with Meghan and Harry, and we were going to like run around the world saving people. So that's where the superheroes came from, this idea of them and some Spotify employee running around the world saving people. Finally, anyway, I remember where that graphic was going to go. Anyway, essentially, according to this article, Meghan and Harry wanted to do a podcast because other celebrities were doing podcasts. And the writer of the article points out that how this works is that a person or celebrity, be they celebrity or not, shoots a few episodes or records a couple episodes of a podcast. They grab their own talent for the week or guest stars and they make the podcast and then they present it to Spotify, and Spotify is like, yeah, you had something good here. Harry and Meghan didn't do that. They just went and were like, hi, we're royal, or we used to be, but her Royal Highness doesn't own the word royal, right? And so we're royal, and I think for that reason we deserve our own podcast. And people were interested in Harry. People have not ever been interested in Meghan. They still aren't. Never will be. No matter how much she joins in and tries to tear down Harry's stuff, it's never going to make her stuff great. And it's not going to make people like her because she won't do what she needs to do, which is to lay low, shut up, turn the cameras off, and just be a person for 3 or 4 years, and then slowly come back. And then she could maybe make it work. But without being shut up for several years, she's got to rehabilitate her image. He does too. But anyway, the guys from SmartList. Jason Bateman, whose sister Justine blatantly came out and called Meghan and Prince Harry out on their poverty tourism or their um, misfortune, like they're like ambulance chasers, I think she said. But anyway, Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes and Will Arnett, they recorded some pilot episodes with friends of theirs. They proposed it and it was picked up and taken on. And Meghan didn't do any of this, and she didn't tell Harry you were supposed to do any of this. So it gets to the point where people are waiting for an what's it called? A Spotify podcast, and they get nothing. Like, there's nothing. There was supposed to be cricket sound effect that went on right there, but I don't think it did. So that shows you that it's even more nothing than it actually was. But no, they start talking about in this article and giving credence to some of the wildest rumors that I'd heard. For example, that Harry wanted to talk about childhood trauma, but he wanted to sit down and talk. I want to talk with like Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and see why, I had childhood trauma and they had childhood trauma, but why did I turn out to be one of the good guys? And they turned out to be the bad guys. And I was like, oh my God, really? I mean, first of all, a political despot in Russia is not keen to interview with Prince Harry, regardless of whatever's going on. But also, this whole situation, Harry believes he is the good guy here. And he really does believe that. He is so sensitive. I don't think that's the word. He
If I learned one lesson
is
from my time with the CIA,
okay, we'll go back to her in a minute.
everybody believes they're the good guy.
Okay.
I was an officer
So
with the CIA clandestine service.
if he had
and
one
undercover
thing,
on counterterrorism and intelligence all around the world for almost 10 years.
what kind of adverse childhood did he have? I know his mother died. A lot of people's mothers have died. But first of all, and why does he think he's a good guy? Like, he needs to listen to this video right here about good guys and bad guys. It's pretty, I think everybody should. I didn't take the whole thing, but if you want to, like, Google this, former undercover CIA officer talks War and Peace, it's really interesting about the mindsets of enemies. And the commonalities between, people who refer to each other as enemies, but who all have the same values in a way. So we'll listen to her, and she has just said, if there was one thing that I learned from listening to these operatives.
If I learned one lesson from my time with the CIA, it is this: everybody believes they're the good guy. I was an officer with the CIA clandestine service and worked undercover on counterterrorism and intelligence all around the world for almost 10 years. The conversation that's going on in the United States right now about ISIS and about the United States overseas is more oversimplified than ever. Ask most Americans whether ISIS poses an existential threat to this country, and they'll say yes. That's where the conversation stops. If you're walking down the street in Iraq or Syria and ask anybody why America dropped bombs, you get, they were waging war on Islam. And you walk in America and you ask, why were we attacked on 9/11? And you get, they hate us because we're free. Those are stories manufactured by a really small number of people on both sides who amass a great
Okay.
deal of power and
So,
wealth
just an
by
interesting
convincing the rest
perspective
of
on
us
the
to
world.
keep
And
doing
she
it.
goes on to talk about some interesting things. One in
I've
particular
learned
is Star Wars
one lesson
movies
from
and
my
how
time
the like
with the
people
CIA.
in
It
ISIS
is
will
this:
see the Star Wars and they
everybody's in this for
see
the good guy.
themselves as the ragtag, little band of
I
rebels
was an officer with the
upsetting the
CIA
giant
clandestine service and
imperial
worked
capital,
undercover
and
on
they view
counterterrorism
themselves
and
as those
intelligence all
vandals,
around the world for
and they
almost
view
10 years.
American
The
and
conversation that's going on
Western,
in the United States right
situations, the
now about
UN as
ISIS
defense or
and
as
about the United
the
States
dark
forces
side. And
is
whereas, we
more
tend to also origin
oversimplified
or
than ever.
identify with the
Ask most
vandals,
Americans whether
even though
ISIS
that's
poses
not
an existential threat to this
even
country, and
and
they'll
it's
say
something to
yes.
look
But
at.
that's where the conversation
If you're
stops.
calling yourself
If
the
you're
good
walking down the
guy in
street
something,
in Iraq
Harry,
or
you need to make
Syria
damn sure
and
you're the
ask
good guy.
anybody why
'Cause
America dropped bombs,
I don't know
you
anything
get
about
they were waging war on
Vladimir
Islam.
Putin or
They
child
do war on
or,
America, and you ask,
what's his
why were
name,
we
Donald
attacking Mom?
Trump's
And you get,
childhood. I don't know. I
he
don't
doesn't use
care.
word for
Um,
those are
I don't
stories
think if he
manufactured
wants
by
to
a
talk to
really
somebody
small number
about
of
how
people on both sides
adverse
who
childhood
amass a great
influences
deal of power and wealth
affect
by
and make some people
convincing the
go
rest of us to
bad,
keep killing
he
each other.
should talk to his wife first. I mean, that would be my advice. Anyway, speaking of adverse childhood experiences, these are the ways that psychologists now are using um, to kind of measure what adverse events happen in a child's life and to use that number to kind of predict or see where behaviors that these people have in later life come from. So, adverse offenses or ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, are physical abuse, physical neglect, mental illness, an incarcerated relative, emotional abuse, emotional neglect, mother treated violently, substance abuse, sexual abuse, divorce, lack of physical activity, smoking, alcoholism, drug use. These are kind of the impacts that come on them, but the adverse experiences are lifted above. And I guess Diana's death was kind of tantamount to divorce, and maybe he had some emotional neglect. But Jesus, Harry, you're not the only one whose mom died. What is your deal? Just stop. Oh my gosh, there is nothing wrong with you that justifies anything that you're doing. So stop it. All right, back to archetypes. Archetypes or Spotify archetypes. We all know how boring archetypes turned out to be. It sucked from the title onward because the labels discussed were stereotypes, they were not archetypes, and that was annoying right off the bat. Now, as usual, what the people at Spotify were saying is that Megan's oversold herself at every turn, that essentially there was initially a sort of understanding that as Megan is proposing all these people for the stereotypes or archetypes, that she would get the stars to come in and speak to their experience of being stereotyped as this stereotype archetype, and then they were supposed to explain then how they're not that stereotype, whatever. And Megan found that she didn't have the contacts. And she thought, just like she invited everyone on the A list to her wedding that she didn't even know, that she could just invite them on her show and they would just drop everything and go, Megan needs me. She needs my help. I've got to be there. Um, like she wrote Taylor Swift a handwritten note to come be on her archetype show. Meanwhile, at a Swift concert, Taylor just threw Meghan's handwritten letter away and then turned around and took a selfie with the Prince of Wales, Princess Charlotte, and Prince George. So Meghan's year of redemption last year did not go very well. And there's a little bit of proof in that pudding, isn't there? But back to archetypes. It seems like a situation where things you have to do to publish a podcast are things that Archwell was expected to do, but they didn't do. And this was one point of frustration for Spotify. There are a few quotations that I took about the podcast just to kind of give you a piece of what her bullying looks like and for how troublesome she is to work with. So, Vanity Fair. The source who worked in media projects says Meghan's own relationships with employees tended to follow a familiar pattern. She would be warm and effusive at the beginning. Love bombing. Love bombing. Sorry. Engendering an atmosphere of professional camaraderie. And then when something went poorly, often due to Harry and Meghan's own demands, such as not having a teaser ready 5 months before the show premiered and before there was any tape to promote, Meghan would get really cold and withholding towards the person she was perceived to be responsible. The source says it was really, really, really awful. Very painful because she's constantly playing checkers. I'm not even going to say chess, but she's just very aware of where everybody is on the board. And when you're in, you're in. And when you're not in, you're going to be thrown to the wolves at any moment. If they say in practice, they say that manifested is undermining, it's talking behind your back, it's gnawing at your humanity. Then we have two sources of a colleague with ties to archetypes took a leave of absence after working on 3 episodes, then left Gimlet, which was the production studio that Spotify had to loan Archwell to use to get the podcasts produced. Several others described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny, exiting their job, or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan. The person who interacted professionally with her says, I think if Meghan acknowledged her own shortcomings or personal contributions to situations rather than staying trapped in a victim narrative, then her perception might be better. But they added with a soggy laugh, but who am I to criticize Meghan Markle? Last one, the person who worked in media projects reading stories in the tabloids about Meghan bullying Palisade and couldn't imagine something that happened. So this person read those stories in the tabloids and couldn't imagine that Meghan would do this stuff. And then after working with Meghan, though, this person realized, oh, on any given Tuesday, this happened. Yeah, this happened. And while it bears belief that Meghan actually shouted at a Palisade, as has been reported, a person who interacted with her professionally says, you can be yelled at even if a person doesn't raise their voice. It's funny that people don't differentiate the energy of being yelled at and literally somebody screaming at you, which is an interesting point I hadn't ever considered before. It is different. Like, it reminds me a lot of fights I get in with my spouse where I'm like, "Stop yelling." And they're like, "I'm not yelling." And I'm like, "Yes, you are." And it's yelling energy, you know? Um, so there's one podcast where Meghan would say the B word meaning bitch, because she behaves like a B word. And when it came to bullying in the workplace, there are some highlights from the article. And So it's hard to imagine how someone who seems so earnestly kind and engaging in world improving, if also brand building activities, could wind up in engaging in revanchism with people so below her in status. A partial episode might be answer may be found in an episode. So the couple repeatedly expressed frustration in Harry and Meghan, the Netflix ridiculousness mentory, ridicumentary, that Meghan wasn't tapped as an asset. They didn't tap Meghan's ass. I'm sorry, I'm a 12-year-old boy. So Harry and Meghan were mad because they didn't use Meghan as an asset within the Commonwealth because she's a person of color. And they didn't, put her like on the tour. I mean, forget the fact they sent her to Australia and they sent her to um, New Zealand. They sent her to Africa, to freaking South Africa, no less. And she is standing in a country where people are having rolling blackouts and are unable to have electricity for an entire day. Some don't have a way to feed their families. Some are dying of AIDS. And she has the nerve to stand on a beautiful patio of what is obviously a very nice home, most likely the governor's mansion of South Africa or whatever South Africans call that. Um, and she has the nerve to stand up there and say, "Well, nobody's asked me if I'm okay. They haven't asked me if I'm okay, Tom. What am I supposed to do? I live in a palace and they haven't asked me if I'm okay." Ah, yeah, I just can't believe it. Yes, no, my love, nor can I believe it. And that is why we're telling you right now that we are upset that the palace has missed an enormous opportunity with my wife and how far that will go globally. Just, and so we're just gonna go on about our business then and try to make lots more money than really, I mean, the royal family, and have a nice famous life, I mean, privacy for ourselves and our child. But it's really sad that they didn't use Meghan more. I really think so. So, in this quotation here, Harry is just proving that he has no problem with the institution that he was born into and the traditions of it. His issues are about his wife not treated as a bigger deal in the first 72 days that she worked for them. This woman did 72 days of actual work for these people, and they're supposed to have really used her for all her potential while they're still getting to know her and see if they can even trust her. She's running around breaking the most essential rules of dress and fashion and writing on bananas and all kinds of craziness like that. And we're supposed to send her into the Commonwealth more so that she can insult other people who are in indigent certain situations or have to rely on drug use or at threat for AIDS and other diseases because of that drug use. I mean, but no, write a lovely little slogan on a banana. Put a platitude on a banana, Meghan. That'll do it. Yeah, what an untapped resource she was. Um, but the argument of this is that, Meghan and Harry, on one hand, they're saying, the palace institution, everything about it was horrible. But then they want to use titles. Um, Now, this person that they're talking to in this section, the article says the source, who is also a woman of color, defends Meghan's right to want a piece of the empire for herself. If I was in the same position and I was treated the way I was by the institution, it wouldn't stop me from still feeling that that title is mine and deserved, they say. If anything would feel like you're giving in to the pressure to exclude you in the first place, so actually, it would probably make me want it even more. Damn well, I'm going to slap it on my kids' nails too. So basically, this person says that a woman who's worked 72 days for these people has somehow earned their respect and a title and our respect of a title. And can somebody please tell me how badly she was treated by the institution? What bad thing happened? I have yet to understand what bad thing happened. Somebody tell me. Somebody of color, please tell me. Or anybody, if you know, tell me what bad thing happened to her that would entitle her to anything. Jeez. Anyway. So aside from the Spotify, which earned them the moniker effing grifters, we have the Netflix deal. And as I've been saying from the beginning, they were not even close to being paid $100 million. And Netflix came out on the record about that finally. They didn't cite the specific number, but they said it is not even close to what they said for the 100 million they said it is. I would imagine it's probably 10 million with money for production included, be my guess. Speaking of Netflix, here's my tea for the Netflix today. I think I'm gonna roll everything about this American Riviera Orchard back. I don't think it's gonna make it onto to Netflix, but I'm gonna tell you what might happen. What I think is what's going around is that Paramount is rebranding. They've been rebought and they're rebranding, and they're gonna take American Review Orchard, because all the trademark issues will be worked out by then like magic. Um, that's what I heard, and that's what I believe will happen. Could be wrong, but I don't see how she's gonna get through this trademark issue by March 14th or March 4th. I don't see I don't see how she's gonna do it. By the way, this is the American Riviera. So the article, the Vanity Fair article says about ARO, whether American Riviera Orchard will be well received or received at all, at least in name, remains to be seen. On August 31st, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office rejected the trademark applications on 2 grounds. You cannot trademark a place. American Riviera is clearly a place. And Harry and David have like a line of pears called Royal Riviera. And so they say it's too close to their name as well. I don't see how they're going to get that trademark. Now, I've seen lawyers do some fancy arguing in front of some very tired judges and get things through that probably should never have gone through, but I've seen it. It's possible that they get it through, but I don't see how, according to the letter of the law. Um, so personally, I think she's screwed on the front of both the show and the trademark. I think I'm walking everything back. I'm sticking with what I was saying to begin with. The ARO cooking show will not be seen on Netflix. And the last anyone heard, she was screaming to get it premiered, only to the extent that it wasn't even on the schedule until 2 weeks before the airing, leaving no time for promotion. Then she was screaming at everybody, her attorneys, to get the trademark fixed now. Now, I want it like yesterday. Do it now. You can't get me a basic trademark. Well, ma'am, we did try to tell you. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear positivity. Positivity. That's what I want to hear. Okay? Right? Right. Okay. So But I don't know what Meghan thinks is gonna happen or how she's gonna rush along this trademark application, but you can't hurry stuff like that along. Yeah, I mean, who isn't there's not an emergency situation where you need an emergency trademark. If you need an emergency trademark, you're doing it wrong. That's something you should be doing really early while you're still choosing products and developing a line. And, you know, I don't know. I'm back to not seeing this on Netflix. It's just too much of a circus. Of course, everything with Megan is. Now, interviewed in this Vanity Fair article is Lainey Louie of Lainey Gossip. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she reminds me of like early aughts, mid aughts. Like I couldn't believe they were interviewing her. Does she still do stuff? Like I didn't go there then even, but now I was just kind of surprised to see she still got a gig. She said that Megan's first lifestyle effort, the TIG, was possible in Louis Circle in Toronto while Megan was filming Suits there. However, American Rivy Orchard to me is giving 2024. It's not giving 2024, it's giving 2014. Fame arrests you at the moment it arrives. Does it really, Lainey? Please tell us more. Yeah, so fame arrests us, like, at the moment that it arrives, and you wonder if that is your health and wellness style version of that, where she had to suspend the TIG and quit the moment that she became Harry's girlfriend, and then fiancé, and then his wife. And maybe American Riviera is maybe picking up from where the TIG left off in 2014. Um, and again, to me, Lainey herself gives off also 2014 vibes. So I don't know. Does fame arrest you? I mean, there is definitely stunted development with both of these two. I don't know how much it has to do with fame. I think it's just because they're assholes. But I don't know. It could be arrested at the moment of a particular trauma or something. I don't know. I can't psychoanalyze these people. But if you're a therapist type person or with an insight into psychology, I'd love to hear what you think about them. Um, all right, we're getting close to the end, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. So, Vanity Fair, the source familiar with the couple says, I think there's one thing that no one could take away from Meghan, and that is how hard she works, how much effort goes into everything she does. Ultimately, that's all she needs. And I think that's why American Rivy Orchard probably will be a massive success. Even if in 2 years' time it doesn't exist anymore and she's on to the next, it will have that moment. There is no way that you can say it wasn't successful. I beg to differ, whoever said that. I beg to differ. Something that is not a success 2 years after it starts is not a success. A success keeps going, and becomes a household name. I mean, putting effort in something is not yelling at people to do something when their expertise tells them otherwise, and then yelling at them for the project failing. Yeah, that's not effort. That's not working hard. That's being hard to work with. Hard working and putting effort into something is also not sitting up with some cardstock and a gold pen and calligraphizing a company name along with a logo that, as H.G. Tudor says, looks like a masturbating octopus. That is not hard work, and it's not effort. It's cheap and it's ugly, but you know. So finally, if in 2 years' time this company doesn't exist or it's liquidating itself, there will be every way that I can say that this business venture was not successful. So I don't know who this person is, but that they have this to say is completely asinine. So to me, it looks like the first 5 years or the second 5 years are going to be a lot like the first, except people are coming after them now and they're calling it like it is, and I think that's wonderful. So that is going to be it from me for today. When we come back, we will pick up with chapter 4 of Lady C's book, Meghan and Harry, the true story, persecutors or victims. I would like you, please, if you enjoyed this, to like, subscribe, comment, and share. If you made it all the way to the end for me, thank you so much, and I'm grateful to you for listening. If you made it only halfway through, I'm thankful for you too. Have a great few days, and I will be back as soon as I can get back with our next video. And remember, all the things that I suggested we could maybe look at in the topics. And there's plenty to look at. So whatever strikes your fancy. But I also want to hear what you have to say about my putting the background images in. Is that something that's helpful? Or am I putting a lot of work into doing that and it's not helpful because you just listen and watch it? So I'm really wondering about that because it takes quite a long time and I could make probably 3 videos for the time invested in one if you don't want the articles or the images. But then again, I think the images maybe add. I don't know. You decide. It's your show, and you tell me what you want to see. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.